Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. This is also the case with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world as a disguised incarnation of Krishna, but his appearance is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahabharata, and other Vedic scriptures. He appeared in order to teach the fallen souls in this material world. For in this age of Kali, almost everyone has become attached to fruitive and ritualistic activities and mental speculation. Consequently, there was a great need to revive the system of devotional service. The Lord himself personally came down, disguised as a devotee, so that the fallen populace might take advantage of the Lord's example. At the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advised complete surrender unto him, promising all protection to his devotee. Unfortunately, people are so fallen that they cannot accept the instructions of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna returned with the same mission, but he executed it in a different way. As Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he ordered us to surrender unto himself. But as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught us how to surrender to Krishna. Therefore, he is praised by the Goswamis. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Lord Sri Krishna is certainly the personality of Godhead, but he is not as magnanimous as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Krishna simply gave orders for one to become his devotee, Man Mana Bhav Mad Bhakta. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually taught the process of Krishna consciousness. If one wants to become a devotee of Krishna, he must first take shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following in the footsteps of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and other exalted devotees. So, as the purport says, Sri Krishna, he ordered us to surrender unto himself. And Bhagavad Gita ends with Sarva Dharman Paritajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraj, where Krishna is saying, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And he gave us the process of surrender. Bhagavad Gita 9.34 Man Mana Bhav Mad Bhakta Mad Yaji Mam Namaskuru Mam Eveshashi Yukta Vaivam Atmanam Mad Parayana. Engage your minds always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So the purport we read is saying Krishna, he told us to surrender to him. And then when Krishna, he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed us how to surrender to Krishna by taking the role of a devotee himself and showing us from the example, from his own example and examples of other exalted devotees. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us three principles: Nama Ruchi, Vaishnav Seva, and Jivadaya. Chanting of the holy names, that's Nam Ruchi, and serving the Vaishnava, Vaishnav Seva, and Jivadaya, giving the mercy of Krishna consciousness to others. So in this Kali Yuga, how we can surrender to Krishna? That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said this verse, Hare Nam, Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva Gatiranidha. In this age of Kali, there is no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Hari. And he also said, Golokera Premadhan Hari Nam Sankirtan. The treasure of divine love in Golok Vrindavan has descended as the congregational chanting of Lord Hari's holy name. So that was Nam Ruchi. And then we have Vaishnav Seva. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed us with his own personal example by serving the devotees. As Nimai Pandit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was doing menial service. He was washing the clothes of the devotees, carrying the loads of the devotees, bringing their deity paraphernalia, kusha grass tilak for them. And these devotees, they were saying that, oh, Nimai, you are a greatest Brahmin, you are a great scholar, and now you have become a great devotee. I cannot have you wash my clothes. But then Nimai said, no, this is the only way that Krishna will be pleased with me. So let me do this service. So he was insisting like that. And in this spirit, he taught the devotees how to love and serve other devotees. I was hearing one class and one devotee said that our process in Krishna consciousness is not about achieving but receiving. Receiving Krishna's mercy by serving his devotees. And seva service does not mean just doing service, but serving without expecting anything in return. So doing it selflessly to please the other person and to please Krishna. We have this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai pumsam karo paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasiditi. That the supreme occupation, dharma, of all humanity is that by which men can attain loving devotional service unto the Lord, and such service needs to be performed unmotivated and uninterruptedly to completely satisfy the self. So this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught by his own example how to perform selfless service. And then Jivadaya. Jivadaya is giving mercy that we have received to others as well. So distributing Krishna consciousness, the holy name, and Srila Prabhupada's books to others. We should be grateful of what we have received. So what it means to be grateful is when you get something for yourself, it is helping you and it has real value for you, then you share it with others. You want others to experience the same happiness that you are experiencing. So by giving this mercy to others, we are showing our gratefulness to Srila Prabhupada, to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they say that if you're not grateful, you are a great fool. FOOL. So a devotee is by nature caring towards others and he wants to give what he has received. So in all the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these three principles, Nam, Ruchi, Vaishnav, Seva and Jeev Daya, these are evident. And we're going to specifically talk about the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Mahaprakash Leela. I have covered some parts of it previously. We'll just quickly review them. So one day Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his devotees that we are spending our whole day speaking about Krishna, serving Krishna, chanting in Kirtan, but we are wasting our night sleeping. So from this day onwards, for next 1 year, we are going to do Kirtan also throughout the entire night. So this was the instruction, and the devotees, they were ecstatic and they cried out, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. So one of the ecstatic symptoms of bhakti is that the devotee becomes avyartha kalatvam. So there are 9 symptoms of ecstatic bhav. Shantir avyartha kalatvam, viraktir manashunyata, asha bandha samutkantha nam gane sadaruchi, asakti stadguna akhyane, priti stadvasiti sthale, iti adayo anubhavasyo jata bhavankurachane. So avyartha kalatvam. Avyartha kalatvam means that concern that time should not be wasted. So Chanakya Pandit also says this quote, Ayushya shana eko api na labhe swarna koti bihi na chen nirarthakam niti ka chahanes tato dikha. Even one moment of life spent cannot be regained for millions of gold coins. Therefore, what greater loss is there than time spent uselessly? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he mentioned to the devotees that we should do Sankirtan during the night for 1 year, these devotees, they got initially very excited, but then then the reality dawned on them and they asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how can we medically sustain without sleeping? Every day and night for 1 year, we're going to do this Harinam Sankirtan. Won't we get tired? How would we maintain our enthusiasm? So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave the key to Kirtaniya Sadahari. If you want to chant all day night, all day and night without interruption, we should follow this principle. Trinadapi sunechena taruriva sahishtana manina manadena kirtanaya sadhari. So one should chant in a humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree. One should not expect any respect for himself, but should give all respects to others. So in that state of mind, we can chant the holy name of Lord constantly. So what happens is, being humble, humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, like that, we do not commit any Vaishnava aparadh or disrespecting devotees. It is due to Vaishnava aparadh or bad association that our taste for Krishna consciousness, that our taste for Harinam does not come about. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he began holding this kirtan all night at Srivasa's house, because these kirtans were so intimate. Only uh, purest devotees were allowed entrance, because others would not understand the bhav of the devotees, the level at which they were communicating with Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was chanting and dancing with the rest of the devotees, just like one of the devotees. But everyone there knew that he was the Supreme Lord. But outside Srivasa's house, there were so many people who wanted to get in, but they were, and many were very envious, and they were proud, and they were not allowed in the kirtan. And um, so, because they were not allowed, they started spreading rumors about what was going on inside the house of Srivas Thakur. So they were saying, we know why they don't allow us into the house. This Srivas and his associates, they are criminals. They are low-class thugs. During the day, they chant tantric mantras to seduce young girls, and then they get these girls to come to their house at night, and they lock the doors. And they drink all sorts of wines and liquor, and they decorate themselves with luxurious garments. They sing all sorts of passionate songs together, and this way they engage in the most abominable activities. And that's what they're doing all night. That's why we are not allowed in. We are all moral, ethical, saintly people who can't stand what's going on. So, and then what is this loud chanting? They are hypocrites. They are saying that God is in their heart as Paramatma. And if God is in their hearts, then why do they need to scream so loud for Him to hear? And if they scream at somebody, it annoys them. It does not please them. So why are they screaming at Krishna? It is an insult, offense to Krishna. And because of this offense, there is going to be famine and drought and all sort of tragedies in Navadvip. So we should go to the king, and we should report the king and arrest all these people, and arrest them in shackles and throw them in the prison. And another person said, we do not have time for that right now. Let's go to Srivasa's house, break it into pieces, and throw it in the Ganges and arrest all of them. So every night, these Efis, they were outside Srivasa's house talking like this. And then it's mentioned, one pious, nice person among this group of people, he said, oh, all these devotees, they are so fortunate. They're chanting and dancing with Lord Gauranga. The only reason that I am not allowed is I do not have the pious credits to earn such a blessing to be with the Lord. So when the envious people, they heard that, they heard this person, they were outraged and they screamed, he's one of them, beat him, get him. So this person, he had to run away. So if someone, they didn't follow along with this criticism of their theists, their propaganda, and with their blasphemies, they were singled out and they were persecuted. But the interesting fact is that the devotees who were engaged in the Sankirtan, they could not hear any of this blasphemy, that what was going on outside, what other people were talking about, because these devotees, they didn't hear any criticism. So why is that? Because the devotees were absorbed. They were absorbed in Nam Sankirtan. See, joyfully chanting the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we can learn a lesson from this pastime, that there is so much negativity, prajalpa, gossip around us. Regulative principles are broken around us at workplace. Yeah, people are talking about all kinds of different things. How should we protect ourselves for not being disturbed by others, what others are saying or criticizing about us? So answer is we have to be absorbed. Here we see the devotees were so busy, absorbed in japa, Bhagavatam, reading Krishna, doing Krishna's service, serving Vaishnavas, that they couldn't hear this gossip and criticism that was going on around them. So that's the secret to protect ourselves, to be absorbed in devotional service. And Prabhupada writes in one letter to Hansadutta, devotee means he is able to tolerate all kinds of discomfort and whims of the material nature. And because he is so much absorbed in serving Krishna, he takes no time to become angry or take offense with others or find some fault. So, if our goal is fixed, we are focused, we have our day planned, these are the number of rounds I have to chant, I have to read these many pages of the books, I have to listen to these lectures, I have to perform this service, then if we are absorbed in this, then we won't become distracted, we won't become angry. If somebody criticizes us or says something wrong, we would not be provoked. So that's the key for protecting us. So let's talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Mahaprakash Leela. So one day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to the house of Srivas Thakur, and he manifested what he called the Mahaprakash Leela, which is the 21 hours ecstasy, Shat Praharya Bhav. So on this particular day, the Lord, he sat on the throne of Vishnu for 21 continuous hours. In the past, as a role of a devotee, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took few minutes to sit on the throne to give happiness to the devotees. But on this day, he sat with conviction. He sat for 21 continuous hours, revealing his various incarnations according to the devotees' love for him. And these devotees, they began to sing the songs for Abhishek, the Purusha Shukta prayers, and hundreds of buckets and pots of water were brought from Ganga, and they were pouring it over Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There was Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivas Thakur. These devotees, they were pouring water over the Lord, and others, they were carrying water. And some of Srivas' servants and maid servants, they were helping bring the water all the way from Ganga to the house. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being given this Maha Abhishek with sweet water, milk, ghee, yogurt, and honey, this Panchamrit. So all of this was being poured over Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was bathed with rose-scented water. And Srivas Thakur, then he brought fresh clothes for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dressed in a beautiful bright yellow dhoti, nice upper cloth, finest jewelry, and beautiful flower garland, and his forehead was decorated with sandalwood tilak. And these devotees, they had prepared such an opulent bhoga, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was eating their offerings. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was giving mercy and benediction to all the devotees present over there. So in my previous class, I have talked about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving mercy to 4 devotees. We'll just quickly review these devotees. The first devotee to receive the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Srivas Thakur's maid servant, Dukhi. Because Dukhi, she was meanly and enthusiastically serving the devotees, carrying pots of water from the Ganga and handing it over to the devotees for bathing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy. And it said over here, and there's a verse, Ye me bhakta jana parthan, na me bhaktascha te jana, mad bhaktanam cha ye bhaktas te me bhakta tamamataha. Here Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my servant are factually my devotees. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with Dukhi's service attitude to other devotees, and so he changed her name to Sukhi and gave her ecstatic love for Krishna. So we can read few verses. So I'll read few verses. This is Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Leela. The servant and maid servants of Srivas Thakur brought water and also bathed the Lord. This is the result of serving the devotees. One most fortunate maid servant named Dukhi brought water for the Lord, who encouraged her by saying, Bring, bring. On seeing her devotional service, the Lord changed her name from Dukhi to Sukhi. Dukhi means one who is unhappy, and Sukhi means one who is happy. Okay, so then the second devotee that got the mercy was Srivas Thakur. So, how he got the mercy? Every time Srivas Thakur would open Srimad Bhagavatam, tears of love of Krishna would flow from his eyes. So, this was a special gift that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Srivas Thakur. So, we can read few verses there. The Lord said to Srivas, "O Srivas, do you remember when you once heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Devananda Pandit? Every line of Srimad Bhagavatam is full of loving devotional mellows, and your heart melted on hearing this narration. You began to cry loudly and fell to the ground, overwhelmed with ecstasy. Not understanding your devotional sentiments, the foolish students could not understand why you were crying. You lost external consciousness while exhibiting transformations of ecstatic love, and the students carried you outside." Devananda did not stop them. As the Guru was ignorant, so were his disciples. So, Srivas Thakur, he was manifesting his ecstatic mood while he was sitting in the class of Devananda Pandit. And the students of Devananda Pandit, they thought he was disturbing the class, so they kind of threw him out. And Devananda Pandit, being their teacher, he didn't stop them. When they left you outside the door, you returned home greatly distressed. Feeling unhappy at heart, you sat down in a solitary place and again began to read Srimad Bhagavatam. Seeing your distress, I left Vaikuntha and appeared in your body. Then I sat in your heart and made you cry by awarding you loving devotion. You became ecstatic by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and the entire area became wet as if rain. Realizing the words of the Lord, Srivas became overwhelmed. He rolled on the ground, cried, and sighed deeply. So that was Srivas Thakur. That's how he got the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then a devotee is mentioned. The name is not mentioned of that devotee, but he's called Das. So let's see this Das past time. So it says, if by chance a devotee was absent, the Lord personally ordered that he should be brought there. The Lord extended his palm and said, "Give me something to eat." He then ate whatever they gave. After eating, the Lord said, "Do you remember the night when I was sitting by your side? In the form of a doctor, I cured your fever." On hearing this, the servant became overwhelmed and fell to the ground. So, this devotee called Das, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told this Das that I came as a doctor and cured your fever. So hearing this devotee, he became ecstatic and he fell to the ground. Okay, and then we have the pastime of then Ganga Das Pandit. He received the mercy. So let's read that. So would someone like to read few verses from 109 through 120? Just the verses.
I can read, Mataji.
Sure, Mataji.
The Lord turned to Gangadas and said, "Do you remember how one night you were running away in fear of the king? You came to the boat cart with your entire family, but you feared calamity when no boat could be found. When you could, sorry, Mataji, I can't read.
Anyone else? Sure.
I can read Mataji.
Sure, Mataji.
When you could not get a boat throughout the entire night, you became distressed and began to cry. Fearing that the Yavanas would mistreat your family, you resolved to enter the Ganges. At that time, I crossed the Ganges and came before you as a boatman in a ferry. You were pleased to see the boat and began to speak to me with great affection. Oh, brother, please save me this time. My caste, life, wealth, and body all belong to you. Protect me, take me and my family across the river. I will pay you the one coin and give you 2 coins as a donation. Thereafter, I took you and your family across the river and then returned to Vaikunta. On hearing these words, Gangadasa floated in an ocean of bliss. Such are the pastimes of Lord Gaura Sundara. While crossing the Ganges, you remembered me. Do you remember now that it was I who took you across? After hearing this, Gangadasa fell unconscious to the ground. In this way, the Lord honestly narrated the activities of his devotees.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is reminding his childhood teacher Gangadas Pandit how he was rescued once when Muslim soldiers they wanted to exploit his wife and daughter. They were after him, and Gangadas Pandit he was running and he reached to a dead end to a river, and then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself came down as the boatman and rescued him and his family by taking them across the river. So now, all these instances, they were unknown to everyone. These specific instances that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is reminding the devotees, they were unknown to everyone but to the devotee. So Srivas Thakur, he never told anyone how he was insulted by Devananda Pandit's students. And Gangadas Pandit, he never revealed to anyone how he was rescued by this unknown boatman in the middle of the night to anyone. So no one knew of these incidents, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being Vishwambar, the Paramatma in the heart, he knows everything. Therefore, he revealed these intimate secrets of the devotees and he revealed them how it was he who had showered his mercy on them at the time of the greatest need of the devotee. So, when the devotee hears how the Lord personally reciprocates, how the Lord personally intervenes in the life of the devotee he becomes overwhelmed with gratitude. Because a genuine devotee is very humble. He doesn't consider himself to be great. And so, when the devotee he knows himself to be an insignificant person, he comes to know that the Supreme Lord, who is Bhoktaram Yagnatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, who is the supreme proprietor, supreme enjoyer, the Lord of the entire universe, the Supreme Lord, he is looking after me. And when I am in trouble, he personally descends, he intervenes in my life. So, such is the great Supreme Personality of Godhead, my Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is Bhakta Vatsala. So when the devotee realizes how loving the God is and the divine intervention, the causeless mercy of the Lord in his or her life, then out of gratitude mixed with humility, the devotee he becomes overwhelmed with spiritual emotions. And that is what exactly was happening here, where the devotees they understood the mercy of the Lord and they fell unconscious on the ground. So today we're going to talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showing his mercy to Haridas Thakur. So read few verses. Thereafter the Lord mercifully called Haridas and said, O Haridas, behold my form. You are more dear to me than my own body. I certainly belong to the same caste as you. When I remember how much distress the Yavanas gave you, my heart breaks. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he called for Haridas. Haridas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, look. And Haridas looked and he saw the supreme opulence of Krishna standing before him. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he spoke to Haridas. Haridas, your body is better than mine. I come near you, I touch you to purify myself. The family of your birth is not only my family of birth, but it is better than my family of birth. Now, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his grandparents, Upendra Mishra and Neelambar Chakravarti, they were very highly respected Brahmanas. And Haridas Thakur was by the social system from a family of untouchables. And everywhere Haridas Thakur would go, although he exhibited the characteristics of a great saint, the humility of a devotee of the Lord, He honored and respected and loved everyone, and he didn't see any faults with with anyone. Um, and it was simply because of his birth that he was uh, persecuted. These other people, they saw him belonging to this low caste, so they offended him, persecuted him. People tried to destroy his reputation in every possible way. He was arrested. People tried to murder him. Even the non-violent Brahmins, they would insult him. Yet Haridas Thakur, he remained a loving devotee in in all circumstances, and that's why he's Nam Acharya. He's showing us by example. He's teaching us what it means to be a true devotee. Like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sanatan Goswami, he says this verse: आपने आचरे केहा ना करे प्रचार प्रचार करे ने केहा ना करे ना आचार. Some behave very well but do not preach the cult of Krishna consciousness, whereas others preach but do not behave properly. आचार प्रचार ना मेरा करह दुई कार्या तुम्ही सर्व गुरु तुम्ही जगतेरा आर्या. You simultaneously perform both duties in relation to the holy name by your personal behavior and by your preaching. Therefore, you are the spiritual master of the entire world, for you are the most advanced devotee in the world. So, Haridas Thakur, he took complete shelter of the holy name in every situation, and no matter what anyone did or said to him, no one could provoke him. Um, so, this was Haridas Thakur. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's making this powerful statement. He's saying that your birth is better than mine, your body is worshipable, and I want to be purified by touch of it. So then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he reminded Haridas Thakur of an incident that took place many years ago. So in Shantipur, Haridas Thakur, he met Advaita Acharya, and Advaita Acharya, he arranged for a cave for Haridas Thakur where he was chanting 300,000 names of Krishna, 192 rounds every single day. Now, previously, he had just been in Benapol, where Ramachandra Khan, who became envious of Haridas Thakur because of his growing popularity, and he tried to destroy him by sending a prostitute to him at the middle of the night. And we read recently how Haridas Thakur, because of his own purity, he converted this prostitute into a pure devotee, and she became known as Haridasi. She shaved up her head, gave gave away all the possessions that she had, and she also started chanting 300,000 names. So she went from 0 rounds to 192 rounds in one day. So that was the transformation that Haridas Thakur created. So then Haridas Thakur left that place, and from there on, everywhere he went, he was persecuted. He went to Chandpur, where Gopal Chakravarti, he offended him. When Haridas Thakur was in the assembly of the house of Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, he mentioned that Namabhas chanting, even a glimpse of the sincere chanting, is sufficient to liberate someone. And that liberation and removal of sinful reactions are only insignificant side benefits of chanting. But the real goal of chanting is awakening of one's ecstatic love for Krishna, awakening of the desire to selflessly serve Krishna. But Gopal Chakravarti was sitting in the assembly. He was hearing all of this, and he criticized Haridas Thakur. He did not have any faith in these statements. Um, how even a glimpse of the holy name can bring liberation. And Gopal Chakravarti, he told Haridas Thakur, if your statement is wrong, I will cut off your nose. And we know what happened. Due to this offense to the pure devotee, Gopal Chakravarti got leprosy and his nose fell off. And then finally, Haridas Thakur then came to Fulyagram. And the people of his same caste, the Muslims, they got envious of him and they wanted to destroy him. Haridas Thakur, he was a Muslim, and these Muslims, they couldn't tolerate that someone from their caste was chanting the names of Krishna. They thought he must be destroyed. And then the Hindu Brahmins, they also couldn't tolerate him. They thought a person of the Maliksha family, how is he chanting the name of Krishna? So in both ways, everybody would, Muslims and non-Muslims, they wanted to destroy him. And by the way, all this events were happening way before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before 1486 AD, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended. So these Muslims, they complained to Qazi, and Qazi, he considered Haridas Thakur to be a big threat to the Muslim community. And he tried so many ways to stop Haridas Thakur from chanting the name of Krishna. And he asked him to instead become a faithful Muslim. But what could Haridas do? Now, Haridas Thakur, he is a combined incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Brahma. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Prahlad Maharaj, um, he has his demon teachers, um, Sanda and Amarka. And these teachers ask this question to Prahlad Maharaj, that how come, Prahlad, you are speaking this Krishna consciousness philosophy? So these teachers are saying, dear son Prahlad, all peace and good fortune unto you. Kindly do not speak lies, just reply with the truth. These boys you see are not like you. So talking about his associates, his friends, the demon friends of Prahlad Maharaj. These boys you see are not like you, for they do not speak in a deviant way. How have you learned these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled in this way? O best of your family, has this pollution of your intelligence been brought about by you or by the enemies? We are all your teachers and are very eager to hear about this. Please tell us the truth. So then Prahlad Maharaj responds to this question by this saying this nice verse. Yatha pramayate ayo brahman swayam akarsha sanidhau tatha me bhidyate chetas chakrapaner yatrachaya. O Brahmanas, as iron attracted by a magnetic stone moves automatically towards the magnet, my consciousness have been changed by his will. My consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus, I have no independence. So, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, just like a piece of iron is naturally attracted by a powerful magnet, similarly, my remembrance, my heart, my love, my consciousness is naturally pulled towards Krishna. So, Krishna means one who is all attractive. Sarva akarshati iti. Akarshata iti. Krishna. Krishna is all attractive. So that same Prahlad Maharaj has now come as Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur says that I cannot stop chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. It is not possible for me. I'm automatically attracted by it. So then Qazi, he got so much fed up with Haridas Thakur that he went to the Muslim king, the Nawab, and said, Haridas must be arrested. He must be punished and killed. So so as a result, an arrest warrant was made. Now, when the arrest warrant was made, Haridas Thakur could have run away, could have hidden himself, but he wanted to meet the king, the Qazi. He wanted to meet the soldiers, so so that he could preach to them. So that's the nature of a real devotee. A real devotee is full of compassion. The devotee wants to solve the real problem in the world. Now, the real problem in this world is not coronavirus, it is not cancer, it's not road traffic accidents or poverty or sexual exploitation. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says the real problem in this world is lack of Krishna consciousness. Because the root cause of all the problems is forgetfulness of Krishna. We have this verse, Krishna bhuli se jeevanadir bahirmukha teva maya tare diya samsara dukha. Forgetting Krishna, living entity has become attracted by the external feature from time immemorial. Therefore, the illusory energy Maya gives him all kinds of miseries in this material existence. And Krishna bhuliya jeev bhoga vansha kare pashate mayatare japatiya dhare. As soon as living entity wants to enjoy without Krishna, immediately um, he becomes under the clutches of Maya. So all problems in this world are due to anarthas, and the root cause of all anarthas is forgetfulness of Krishna. And Prabhupada, he wanted us to accept Krishna consciousness wholeheartedly and then preach. So we should not become bhajananandis who are only concerned about their own sadhana. We should become Goshtianandis. We should adopt the mood of our acharyas, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. With this, we should do preaching, and with this mood of preaching, um, Prahlad Maharaj, this Haridas Thakur is none other than Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, he says these two verses in this mood of preaching. Nevodvije paradurattaya vaitaranyas Twadvirya gayana mahamritamagna chitta sochetato vimukha chetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharam udvahato vimodhan. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of this material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. Another one. Prayena deva manayo svavimukti kama maunam charanti vijanena parartha nishtha naitan vihaya kripanan vimumuksha eko nanyam tvad asya sharanam brahmato anupashye. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, I see that there are many saintly persons, indeed, but they are only interested in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to the Himalayas or to the forest to meditate with vows of silence. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. So that was Prahlad Maharaj's mood. And Prabhupada's mood was also the same. Prabhupada, he left his easy going life in Vrindavan to come to America, and he suffered so much hardship to preach. And Haridas Thakur, he had the same preaching spirit. He wanted to preach to the king, to the Qazi and the soldiers. So that's why he came automatically to them. And later on, we will see that Haridas Thakur preaches with Nityananda Prabhu, he preaches to Jagai and Madai. So when he came, Haridas Thakur, when he came to the Nawab, there's a nice conversation. Um, so yeah, he voluntarily came to the Nawab, and he was then right away put into the prison. And next day he was supposed to be brought before the Nawab. And in the prison, Haridas Thakur had a nice conversation with the prisoners, which I want to read from Adi Khand. So we'll go from verse 42 to 68. Can someone read just the verses?
I can read Mataji. When the respectable persons in prison heard that Haridasa had come to see the king, they became pleased at heart. Haridasa is a great Vaishnava. By seeing him, our distress due to imprisonment will be vanquished. The prisoners tactfully persuaded the gods to let them see Haridasa without disturbances. When Haridasa came there and saw the prisoners, he glanced mercifully upon them. Seeing the lotus feet of Haridasa, all the prisoners offered obeisances to him. Haridasa's hands reached to his knees, his eyes were like lotus petals, and his enchanting moon-like face was beyond compare. As everyone devotedly offered obeisances to him, ecstatic devotional symptoms manifest in their bodies. When Haridasa saw the prisoners' devotion, he mercifully smiled at them. With a curious smile, Haridasa gave them an ambiguous blessing. Stay there, stay as you are now. Unable to understand his equivocal words, the prisoners felt morose. Shortly after, however, Haridasa mercifully explained the meaning of his mysterious blessings. You have not understood the meaning of the blessings I gave, and therefore you are lamenting. I never avoid inauspicious benedictions. Carefully try to understand as I explain. As your minds are presently fixed on Krishna, let them stay that way forever. Now you can all together constantly chant the names of Krishna and think of Krishna. Here you have no envy or trouble from others, so you can humbly chant and think of Krishna. Otherwise, if you again return to material enjoyment by bad association, you will forget everything about Krishna. One cannot achieve love for Krishna as long as he is engaged in sense gratification. You should know for certain that Krishna is far away from such persons. The mind that is absorbed in material enjoyment is the great disturbance. Attachment for wife and children are the binding ropes of illusion that lead one to death. If by providence a fortunate person achieves the association of a devotee, he gives up his attachment for material enjoyment and worships Krishna. In conclusion, the nature of material enjoyment is that one makes the same mistake again and again. Therefore, I do not mean stay there in prison, but rather stay free from thoughts of material enjoyment and always chant the names of Hari. Do not even slightly lament that I gave you this blessing in an ambiguous way. I glance mercifully on all living entities. May you all have firm devotion for Lord Krishna. Don't worry, I guarantee that within 2 or 3 days you will be freed. Whether you are a householder or or a renunciant, whatever you are, don't forget these instructions at any cost. Whether you are after offering the prisoners in his best wishes, Haridasa went before the king.
Thank you, Mataji. So when the prisoners in the jail they heard the news that Haridas is coming, they became elated. They were thinking, "Oh, such a great saint is coming, and he's going to give us blessings." These prisoners, they were mostly pious Hindus who were arrested by Muslims um, to be persecuted to convert them into Islam. So these prisoners, they were helpless, they were desperate, and with folded palms, they were looking up to Haridas Thakur with such dependent hearts, begging and praying for his blessings, for his mercy. So when they were looking at him, they could actually feel Krishna's presence, and like that, they were begging for his blessings. So Haridas Thakur he said, "Oh, I bless you that you will always remain just like you are." So when Haridas gave this blessing to the prisoners they didn't say anything, but they looked very disappointed. And Haridas Thakur he understood that his words were misunderstood, misinterpreted by the prisoners. So Haridas Thakur he gave a clarification to what he meant by that blessing, to always remain like you are. So Haridas Thakur said, "Why are you disappointed? I have given you a very good blessing. Right now, you are in a very good consciousness. You want to become a devotee, you want to associate with devotees. That is why you are so happy to see me. And you are considering yourself to be very humble, and you are begging for the blessings from a sadhu. And this attitude is very good. Therefore, I said, may you always remain the way you are. Because it is the consciousness that is more important than the external circumstances. The external environment is always in flux, the external situation is always changing. But what is more important is we should have steady Krishna consciousness. And right now, your consciousness is very good. As far as your imprisonment is concerned, that is a detail. Just as a detail, I would like to tell you that you will be freed, released from this jail in few days. But please remember, we are all in a bigger jail. This entire material world is a jail. Maithuna Agra. We are bound by the shackles of lust, anger, greed. The three modes of material nature, they are keeping us bound to this material world. So you will come out of this little tiny jail of Nawab very soon, but don't forget that outside also there is a jail. And the problem is that no one wants to get out of this big jail. People want to be, people want to stay happily in this jail. So, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, he says in Mahabharata, this verse, Ahani ahani bhutani gacchanti yamalayam shesha sthavaram icchanti kim ashremata param. Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment, but a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless, and he does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in the world. So it is our desire to remain in this prison. That is the most surprising thing that Yudhishthir Maharaj is talking about. That's why we are not preparing to for death, preparing to leave this world, because we want to stay in this world. So nobody wants to escape this prison. And we want to build a beautiful house in this prison. We want to have a nice job in this prison. We want to go for movies in this prison. We want to play sports in this prison. So, such a brilliant prison Durga Devi has made. She has made a prison for which no locks and no security system is needed. Why? Because she has made a prison in such a way that the prisoners, they love to be in this prison. So, like Gokuleshwar Prabhu in one of the classes, he was giving the example: a prisoner in a jail, he's writing a letter to the president. I don't like the wall of my prison. You should get it painted. The bed is not comfortable in my prison. It would be nice if I had this or that. Wouldn't we consider this prisoner to be foolish? He's planning to stay in the prison comfortably. He should be writing a letter to the president: oh, please give me forgiveness. Reduce my term so that I can get out of this prison fast. So, same thing for us. Instead of preparing to live in this material world comfortably and trying to get this or that for our pleasure, making plans to make our situation better, we should spend our energy and our effort to get out of this prison of the material world. So, Prahlad Maharaj, he says this verse: Kutra Shisha Shruti Sukha Mriktashni Rupa Kvedam Kalevaram Ashesharujam Viroha Nirvidyate Natu Janu Yadapati Vidvan Kamanalam Madhulave Shamyandurapahe. Can someone read the translation and the purport of this verse?
If no one is there, I can read Matthew.
I
Sure.
can read Mati.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Yes.
Thank
In this material world, every living entity decides some future happiness, which is exactly like a mirage in the desert. Where is water in the desert? Or, in other words, where is happiness in this material world? As for this body, what is its value? It is merely a source of various diseases. The so called philosophers, scientists, and politicians that know this very well, but nonetheless they aspire for temporary happiness. Happiness is very difficult to obtain, but because they are unable to control their senses, they run after the so-called happiness of the material world and never come to the right conclusion. Purport. There is a song in the Bengali language which states, I constructed this home for happiness, but unfortunately there was a fire and everything has now been burnt to ashes. This illustrates the nature of material happiness. Everyone knows it, but nonetheless one plans to hear or think something very pleasing. Unfortunately, all of one's plans are annihilated in due course of time. There were many politicians who planned empire, supremacy, and control of the world. But in due time, all their plans and empires, and even the politicians themselves, were vanquished. Everyone should take lessons from Prahlad Maharaj about how we are engaged in so called temporary happiness through bodily exercises for sense enjoyment. All of us repeatedly make plans which are all repeatedly frustrated. Therefore, one should stop such plan making. As one cannot stop a blazing fire by constantly pouring ghee upon it, one cannot satisfy oneself by increasing plans for sense enjoyment. The blazing fire is Mahadavagni, Bhava Mahadavagni, the forest fire of material existence. This forest fire occurs automatically without endeavor. We want to be happy in the material world, but this will never be possible. We shall simply increase the blazing fire of desires. Our desires cannot be satisfied by illusory thoughts and plans. Rather, we have to follow the instructions of Lord Krishna. Sarvadharman parityajya mamikam sharanam raja. Thus, we shall be happy. Otherwise, in the name of happiness, we shall continue to suffer miserable conditions.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. So here Prahlad Maharaj is suggesting us we should not be making plans. We should stop our plan making to enhance our sense enjoyment and comfort in the material world, because ultimately everything will be destroyed. But instead, we should surrender to Krishna. And how do we surrender to Krishna? Prahlad Maharaj also says this verse: Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam. So he tells about these 9 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, doing deity worship, offering prayers to the Lord, being the servant of the Lord, serving the lotus feet, being the best friend of, uh, having friendship with the Lord, and surrendering everything to Him by our body, mind, and words, Atmanivedan. So we have these 9 processes of devotional service by which we can surrender to the Lord. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which item amongst these 9 processes of devotional service is most important in the execution of devotional service? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu responded, the most important item was the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We have this verse, Kaler dosha nidhe rajan nasti he ko mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param prajet. My dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality in this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So, this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the best way that we can surrender to Krishna. And for this chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, there is no material impediments. Even one who is in a prison or in a very difficult situation, he can chant the holy names of Krishna. So I was reading an article on Back to Godhead about the devotees who were spreading Krishna consciousness in the communist countries. So Prabhupada, when he went to Russia, his visa allowed him a stay of only 2 days there. And in that time, in these 2 days, he initiated one devotee, and his name was Ananta Shanti from Russia. And Srila Prabhupada, he explained to him all Krishna consciousness philosophy. But Srila Prabhupada, he couldn't explain him the details like deity worship and cooking and so many other aspects of Krishna consciousness. So then Prabhupada, he came back to America, and he asked one French girl who was a disciple of Prabhupada to marry this person in Russia, because at that time only way that American would go to Russia for some days was through marriage. So this French girl, she immediately accepted Srila Prabhupada's orders without even seeing the other devotees. She was fully surrendered to Srila Prabhupada, and she was totally fearless. She accepted to go through the marriage, and she went to Russia. So this couple, they spread Krishna consciousness like wildfire in Russia, and by printing and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books secretly, because the government, they were against um, spreading of this spiritual knowledge. They were against that. So they would capture these devotees who were trying to sell Prabhupada's books, and they would torture and abuse these devotees and put them in the prison and give them all kind of neurological drugs and electric shocks and beat them. And I was amazed that what these devotees were doing when they were in the prison. So I was reading this article. So this a book is written about these devotees, Salted Bread, and there's an article and that I can paste the link of, and I want to read one section of this article. Yeah, entering hell. So this devotee who was put into the prison, he's writing his experience. I used to take only a piece of bread and one spoonful of sugar in the morning. The bread was of a very substantial quality. It was black and wet, and if you pressed it hard, water would drip out of it. So I kept the bread on the window for 3 or 4 days until it was dried and crunchy, and then ate it. I learned how to make japa beads out of bread. One morning a guard used my beads to strike my face and body until he was exhausted. Those japa beads had been my only possession, for which I had saved so many pieces of bread. Soon we realized that even 54 beads were too risky to keep. So we started to make 27 bead strings. Being smaller, they were easier to hide from the antagonistic persons. The difference was just that we had to chant 4 times in order to make 108 or one round. Sometimes I even used a 9 bead set, keeping it almost all the time in my hand. After a while, everyone in the jail knew about Krishna. Some people from the other cells started to ask me and the other devotees questions. Soon, offering food before eating became a tradition in our cell. Everyone in the jail was taking prasadam from the devotees. Even people who were against Krishna consciousness ate something out of our offerings. Many of the inmates told me that they could actually tell the difference between the offered and non offered food. So, we see these devotees, they made japa mala out of the bread that was given for them to eat, and there's a picture of that over here. This is the japa mala they made out of their bread. They were preaching to other prisoners Krishna consciousness philosophy while in the prison. So we see with this example that there is no impediment to Krishna consciousness. It, Krishna consciousness can happen anywhere, anytime. So, Prabhupada, I want to read some quotes from Prabhupada that there is no impediment to love of God. I have 3 quotes. Would someone like to read the quotes?
Okay, I can read.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Prabhu,
Yeah, you want to read? You can read. Nobody was reading, that's why. So go ahead.
shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
There is no impediments to love of God. The love of God. Srila Prabhupada. 1 minute, Mataji. Love means without any personal profit. Sorry. Srila Prabhupada Conversation, Philadelphia, July 13, 1975. Love means without any personal profit. If I love God for some profit, that is business. That is not love. Ahetuki apratihata. And such love of God cannot be checked by any material cause. In any conditions, one can learn how to love God. It is not conditional that I am poor man. How shall I love God? I have got so many things to do. No, it is not like that. Poor, rich, or young, or old, black, or white. There is no impediment. If one wants to love God, he can love Him. Bhagavad Gita, should I read that, Mataji?
Yes, yes, Mataji.
Bhagavad Gita as it is 8.14, perfect. The special qualification of your devotees is that he is always thinking Krishna without deviation and without considering the time or place. There should be no impediments. He should be able to carry out carry out his service anywhere and at any time. Some say that the devotees should remain in holy places like Vrindavan or some holy town where the Lord lived. But a pure devotee can live anywhere and create the atmosphere of Vrindavan by his devotional service. It was Sri Advaita. It was Sri Advaita who told Lord Krishna, "Wherever you are, O Lord, there is Vrindavana." Srila Prabhupada's lecture in Bombay. Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. He does not say any big bombastic thing. Very simple thing that always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer obeisances. It doesn't require MA PhD education to learn these 4 things. Anyone, even a child, can do it. It is very easy. If you daily see the deity in the temple, or if you have got deity at home, even a child will be practiced to them to think of Krishna. It is not at all difficult. And if you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, that is also thinking of Krishna. So Manmana, and if you continue this, then Mad Bhakta, you become his devotee. Manmana, Bhava Mad Bhakta, Madhyaji. Then if you can offer to Krishna. It is very expensive. No. Patram pushpam phalam thoyam yome bhaktya prayachati. You can offer Krishna a little water or a tulsi leaf or a tulsi leaf. eh, Tulsi leaf is not available in any leaf. He does not say tulsi leaf. So what is the difficulty to secure a little water, a leaf or a small flower? Patram pushpam phalam thoyam. The real thing is bhakti. Patram pushpam phalam thoyam. So mad bhakta, if you are the poorest of the poor, you can become a devotee. Ahaituki aprahitaha. Yena, yena, yenatma samprasiddhati. If you want to become a devotee of Krishna, there is no impediments throughout the three worlds within the universe. You can become a devotee. It is so easy.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. So, as Prabhupada is saying, there is no impediment for us to become a devotee of Krishna, for us to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And if we come up with some reasons, oh, I cannot do this bhakti because of this and this, that's wrong. As Prabhupada is saying, there should be no impediment. So, coming back to our pastime, um, the Haridas Thakur, he was giving all these instructions to the prisoners, and all night long he gave these instructions, telling them about devotional service, chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and he enlightened them and he charmed their hearts, and he gave them hope. So this is the work of a preacher, the work of a Rupanuga, the work of a Gaudiya Vaishnav. He gives positivity and energizes the others in following this Krishna consciousness. So next morning, Haridas Thakur, he is brought in front of the king and the Qazi. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we know, he is narrating this incident to all the devotees at Srivasa's house, because nobody knows about this. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he knows everything, past, present, and future. Like Krishna says in Gita, Vedaham samiti tani vartamani cha Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. O Arjuna, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. So Krishna is saying that nobody knows me. Krishna, he's willing to carry his father's shoes on his head. He's willing to be bound by his mother, chastised by Radharani and other gopis. He's willing to be defeated in wrestling by Sridham. And Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he defeated Digvijay Pandit, the Keshav Kashmiri, but he got defeated by Ishwarapuri. And we heard this pastime recently when Ishwarapuri, he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to find fault in his writing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lost to Ishwarapuri. So, nobody can understand the heart of Krishna. He is such a sweet Lord. He knows everything, but nobody knows him. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is revealing to the devotees in Srivasangan this pastime of Haridas Thakur. So when Haridas Thakur, he was brought in front of the king looked at him, and Haridas, he appeared so effulgent. He emanated such kindness, love, composure, and confidence. Haridas Thakur, he was totally fearless. So the king, he respectfully offered him a seat and said to Haridas Thakur, Sir, you are one of us. Why are you behaving like these fool and ignorant Hindu people? Don't you know that you are corrupting our own religion and you are corrupting their religion, and everybody is complaining about you? And if you don't stop this, you're going to have to be destroyed. So Haridas Thakur, he, in front of the king, he laughed. Ha ha. Just see the illusory power of Lord Vishnu. How much illusion you people are in. There is only one God who is the absolute creator, destroyer, and maintainer of everything that exists. He is the ultimate father and mother of all living beings. He is eternal, he is imperishable, he is infinite, and he is the divine person, and he goes by many names. In the Quran, he's called Koda or Allah. In the Puranas, he's called Ram or Krishna or Vishnu. He has many names, but he's the same one supreme person, and we are all his children. And my heart is irresistibly being attracted to that one supreme being, Krishna, who is very loving, who stands in the Tribhanga Roop, the threefold bending form of Shyamsundar. He has a very, very beautiful face, and his face is a personification of all condensed beauty. If we have to compare his beauty to something, his beauty is like the freshly blossomed lotus flower. His lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. He wears a beautiful Vajanti garland of 5 different types of flowers. He has a beautiful Kashtuba mani on his chest. His limbs are very soft and slender. He wears a yellow golden dhoti because it reminds him of the complexion of Srimati Radharani, Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi. He plays his flute very beautifully. The love in Krishna's heart is manifested as a sound of his flute. Parahapidam natvarvapu karnayo karnikaram bibradvashna kanakakapisha vaijantim chamalam randran venuradhara sudaya purayan gopa vrinde vrindaranyam swapadra ramanam pravishad gita kirti. So Haridas Thakur was describing this beauty of Krishna. He said, I cannot help but chant the names of my beautiful Lord Krishna. So like that, Haridas Thakur was describing Krishna to the Nawab. So the king and the Qazi, they got very angry and they told Haridas, stop this nonsense. All we are saying is just stop chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and we will let you go. You don't even need to become a Muslim. Just stop chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. But if you don't listen, we will chop your body into pieces. So at that time, Haridas Thakur says this famous verse. खंड खंड है देह याय यदि प्राण tabu ami vadane na chadi hari naam. Even if my body is cut into pieces and I give up my life, I will never give up chanting the Lord's holy name. I want to read this purport. This material body, which is received from the mother and father, is not permanent. The life that is averse to the service of Krishna and which is presently absorbed in material happiness is also perishable or changeable. But the holy names of the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord Himself are not two separate objects. Spiritual names are not like the names of the material objects that are invented by human beings within the time factor. So the holy name of Krishna and Krishna Himself are non-different. The spiritual name and the possessor of the name are one. Therefore, I can never give up chanting the holy names and repose my faith in my gross and subtle bodies. The constitutional position of a living entity is that he is the eternal servant of Krishna. In other words, every living entity is a Vaishnava. The Vaishnavas have no other activities than chanting the holy names of Sri Hari. The only duty of both the practitioner and the perfected being is to chant the holy names of the Lord. I cannot give this up to follow man-made social behavior. Even if the result is that society and its administrators torture me as much as they want, I am prepared to tolerate it, all with a smiling face. I will never give up the eternal service of Hari to run after temporary material happiness. I have no other activity than congregationally chanting the spiritual names of Krishna that I have received through disciplic succession. Both the body and the mind are distinct from I, the owner of the body, because I am eternal while the body and mind are temporary. So Haridas Thakur is saying, even if you chop this body into so many little pieces, even if I have to give up my life, still I will not give up chanting Krishna's holy name. So the king said, I give you your chance. Then he turned to the Qazi and said, okay, Qazi, you should do, what should we do with this animal? He's crazy. So this Qazi, he was ferocious and he said, beat him till he is dead through the 22 marketplaces of the town. Beat him in all the 22 marketplaces so that everyone sees what happens if you chant the Hare Krishna mantra loudly in my kingdom. Let us give a very exemplary punishment to him. So I will stop here, but we'll continue with this pastime in the next call. Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving me the chance to speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, very nice lecture. Covered so many pastimes, so very beautifully described. So, anybody has any comments? Is anybody there?
Very nice
Yeah.
lecture, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, so also just one thing I heard some days back that Haridas Thakur is a combined incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj, Brahma, and there is another uh, personality who is the son of Richika Muni, who was cursed. So let me read a little bit about this. So it's actually three personalities combined. So I'm going to share my screen. I mean, it's not that important, but I just thought maybe I'll share. Okay, let's see. But basically, Prahlad Maharaj and Brahma, because they are more famous. So, Haridas Thakur was a combined incarnation of Brahma, Mahatapa, Prahlad Maharaj, and Lord Brahma. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so he says, in a book named Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written the following account of how Brahma became Haridas Thakur. Oh, that we know, how Brahma, when he tried to test Krishna, and then he found out actually that I did a wrong thing. Actually, he found out that this cowherd boy is Krishna, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he became uh, very sad. And he was saying, I became puffed up by my pride. So next life, when I come in your pastimes next time, then I want to come in a low birth. So we'll read anyways. And then he came as Haridas Thakur. So he came as somebody who has taken birth in Muslim family. In Dwapar Yuga, Nanda Nandan Shri Krishna was herding the cows through Brajdham in the company of his cowherd boyfriends. When Brahma decided to test Lord Krishna out of a desire to see his majestic form and opulences, he stole both Krishna's cows and calves, actually cows and the cowherd boys, as well as his friends, and hid them for a year in the caves of Sumeru mountain. But a year later, when Brahma returned to Vraj, he was astonished to see that Krishna was still there with both his friends and the cattle. Brahma immediately understood his error and began to regret his rash action. He fell down at Krishna's feet and begged him for forgiveness. Krishna responded by mercifully revealing his divine opulence. I, who appear in Dwapar Yuga as Nanda Nandan Shri Krishna, descend again in Kali Yuga as Gauranga, take on the mood and bodily luster of Radharani in order to display the most magnanimous pastimes. Brahma was afraid that he might commit the same offense during Gauranga's incarnation, so he went to Antardvip, the central island of Navadvip. That is where we have the Mayapur Chandradoy Mandir, Antardvip. Our temple, this ISKCON temple, is in Antardvip, which signifies Atmanivedanam, complete surrender, and began to meditate. So he went there. Lord Krishna was able to understand his mind and so came to him in the form of Gauranga and said, during my incarnation as Gauranga in Kali Yuga, you will be born in a family of Malechas and will preach the glories of the holy name and bring auspiciousness to all living beings. That is how Brahma was given the benediction, or whatever he wanted, he was given that to take birth in a Malecha family. From the above description, it is understood that Haridas Thakur was an incarnation of the creator Brahma, It is said that in order to avoid coming under the influence of Ahankar in Gauranga Leela, he prayed to Krishna to take birth in a lowly family. The same idea is found in Advaita Vilas. Okay. Also, Gaur Ganodesh Dipika suggests the following. Brahma Mahatapa is the son of Richika Muni. It is written that this sage's son picked a tulsi leaf and offered it to Krishna without having washed it first. His father then cursed him to become a Malecha in his next life. He was thus born as Haridas, a great devotee. So he is the Brahma who is the creator, and there is Brahma Mahatap, the son of. It is actually, this is Brahma, and this is Brahma. Brahma. It is okay. So Gaur Ganodesh Dipika also depicts that Haridas Thakur was an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. Hence Haridas Thakur was a combined incarnation of. Here it says, okay, it's. I have to see how this is pronounced. Sometimes it says, let's see. A Vaishnava may appear in any family. Okay, it's all about Haridas Thakur. Okay, so this is one thing I want to say. So three personalities in one, and we may not be able to figure out how it is. And also Prahlad Maharaj came as, in Chaitanya Leela also he came as, who is also,
Vasudev Dutt.
yeah, he came as Vasudev Dutt also. So then we can say, well, Haridas Thakur is also there and Vasudev Dutt is also there. So how can both Prahlad can come in two different, but it is possible because this is spiritual. So okay, so these are the okay. Also, Prabhupada was talking about how we plan, and you were reading that, which was that? I think it was Kutra Shisha Shruti Shukha Mrigatrishni Rupa.
Yes.
Yeah, so all the plans, are dismantled material plans. So we have to plan to serve Krishna. I was thinking, as you were saying, how many rounds I'm going to chant today, how many books I'm going to distribute today, whatever service, how many verses of Bhagavatam I'm going to read today. So like that, there has to be a plan to serve Krishna. If there's no plan to serve Krishna, then we'll plan to serve. Then material desires, all the plans will be there. So they say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So this will, if we have a plan, then we will, even if we fall short of the plan. So let's say I have a plan to chant 25 rounds today. So if I fall short, then I'll chant at least 16 rounds or 20 rounds. So we should always plan. Prabhupada always wanted for us to plan higher. Keep he said you have to shoot the rhino. If you want to plan, then plan some higher thing. So in that way also we will be busy. And if we are busy, as you were saying, then we are not worried about who is saying what about us, what is going on, what in the world, what is happening. Of course, we have to read sometimes news, what is going on. But generally, if we are busy in Krishna Bhakti, then other things will not occupy our mind because we are occupied. Just like I gave the example that if you go to the toilet in the airplane, it says occupied sometimes and you can't go. Only one person can go inside. So if our mind is occupied with Krishna, then there is no other room for anything else to come in there. But if our mind is vacant and not filled with Krishna and Krishna service, then other things will enter. So the idea is to somehow or other plan so that our day is filled with Krishna. So one after another, I'm going to chant, I'm going to read, I'm going to do kirtan, I'm going to go out, I'm going to whatever it is. In the temple, if you have service, So that is another thing. And also there's another thing you were reading about how Prabhupada says we cannot become happy in this material world. So the qualification to go back to Godhead is to become firmly convinced that I can never become happy in this material situation. And materially, in material consciousness. Only way I can become happy is. And the more deeper the conviction of this, the more we can become Krishna conscious. Because there is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way for me to become happy. But we may not be completely convinced like that. But he said like that in that Back to Godhead article we were reading some time back. The first qualification to go back to Godhead is to become completely convinced that this is a nasty place. This material existence is very troublesome and very nasty. I need to go. I cannot become happy in this. When you are completely convinced like that, then Prabhupada says, then you can go back home, back to Godhead. Because then you can surrender to Krishna. Okay, so that is also. And in that verse, I think Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, which you are reading, there is no material obstacle. So Krishna is saying, you offer me this or this or this or this. He doesn't say all. I think yesterday or some devotee was saying, yeah, that he's not saying you give me patra, you give me pushpa, you give me phala, all things simultaneously. No, only one you can give. And water, I was thinking, who cannot give water? Water you can get out of the tap. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. You can get water. Just offer. In your home, you have a tap. Everybody has some water. Just offer water. Leaf. And Prabhupada even said, you don't even have to offer tulsi leaf. You can just get a leaf from any tree outside and offer that leaf to Krishna. And Krishna is satisfied. So, there are so many trees on the road and something. Somehow you get a leaf and offer it. So there is no real impediment. The impediment is our mind. Our conditioning is the impediment. Otherwise, there is no impediment. That is the big impediment. The impediment is our false ego. And then other thing I was thinking is about the determination of Haridas Thakur. How determined he was. Khanda khanda hoy deha. Yadi jaye pran. Even if you take my life, na chhadi harinam. I will not give up the chanting. So we should learn from the determination of Haridas Thakur that he was Namacharya. So that's why he's Namacharya. And Prabhupada says, God helps those who help themselves. So determination has to be increased to serve Krishna. Mind is not cooperating. That's okay. Forget the mind. Prabhupada says like that. Don't think about the mind. Just do it. So yesterday we also talked about it. That is how we have to do. It's like in a military. We have to do means we have to do. There is no think. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come as he came down for Gangadas Pandit to take him across the river as the boatman. So he has also come down. He has descended because of Advaita Acharya's desire. He has come down to take us across the river of birth and death. So we should take his shelter. And basically, and the other thing about Haridas Thakur, how he was telling the prisoners, you be where you are. And of course, we are prisoners, and you are talking about how this illusion has been created by the Supreme Lord. This material world is such expert illusion created that even though there is no lock, nobody wants to get out of this prison because the illusion, and we are prisoners of our own desires, basically. In this material world, we are prisoners of our own desires, our own material desires. So we are bound in this prison, cycle of birth and death, and Maithuna Agar. And it is sometimes called the shackles of this lusty desires. Because we are bound by this, and we are trying to change from third class cell to first class cell in the prison. So that is also, everybody is trying to change, including me, from third class to first class cell. So first I was living in an apartment, then you move into a house. Now you have bigger house. So now you have some bigger cell. Earlier apartment was a smaller cell. Now you have bigger cell. Of course, uh, for I'm trying to we're trying to serve Krishna, invite devotees in the house. That's different. Okay, so a little different. But but sometimes we think I will I have a smaller car, buy a bigger car, and like that. It's not bad. I mean, if we have a need to serve, if we are going to serve Krishna, that's all right. We can. But otherwise, it is just, and it may be needed. You know, like in my apartment, I couldn't invite so many, but now with a bigger house, I can invite so many devotees and talk about Krishna. So it facilitates preaching. So then it's okay. But otherwise, just moving from one thing to another to improve material situation is like changing from a third class cell to a first class cell. So, so that is how everybody is engaged in. And it was remarkable that you were saying that how the prostitute went from 0 to 192 rounds. So this is the power of association of Haridas Thakur. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koy, Lava Matra Sadhu Sanghe Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So we also, we were like completely off the track. No idea about Krishna consciousness. And then some devotees came in our life. We got Prabhupada's books, some devotees. And we changed our life. Otherwise, what would have happened? Where would we be? We don't know what would have happened if devotees didn't come in our life, or we didn't get Prabhupada's books. Then what would have happened? Where would we be? We would be enjoying. We would be feeling that we are enjoying. Yeah. Sometimes, if you have good karma and a lot of good job and things, then we would have been enjoying. But enjoying and creating our path to this repeated birth and death and to hell, probably, if we are doing some sinful activities like meat eating. Many devotees were eating meat before they came to Krishna consciousness. If you didn't come to Krishna consciousness, you are going to hell. Kumpipak, Raurav. Basically, that is what it is. Bhagavatam is saying that. So, so this is what has happened. The prostitute was also saved. So how much we should feel that, oh, this is so amazing. And somebody gave us a book, so we are supposed to give these books and this message to others. So, like, so we go out and give this book, and that can change somebody's life. Okay, so these are some thoughts I had. Okay. We'll stop here. It's already 8:40. Anybody has anything more to say? Any other thoughts on the class? Okay, so thank you very much. The time has changed, so now you have to rise we all have to rise 1 hour earlier than what we used to. And I was thinking that normally it is difficult, but when the time changes, you are forced. So if we would have done that before only, it would have been easier. But until it happens, we don't change, right? So now we are forced by everybody's following this time. So our work and everything starts early now. So we have to adjust. But otherwise, we have to change. It is difficult. But when we are forced to change, then we have to change. It's for me also, I'm saying this. So this is how it works. So we have to force ourselves. Okay. So enough said, and I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your association.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank
Ji,
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.